Hey, Reddit, I never thought I'd be the guy to pour his heart out online, but here we are. I need to get this off my chest, and maybe someone out there has been through the same hell I have. This is the story of how my wife cheated on me with our cleaner, Max. Yeah, you heard that right. The guy the first hired to make our home spotless was busy messing up my marriage. And the worst part? She had the audacity to blame me for it. I'll start from the beginning because, in hindsight, all the signs were there. I was just too blind to see them. Part 1. The beginning of the end. My wife, Laura, and I have been married for 8 years. When we first got together, she was this smart, confident, driven woman. She worked in marketing, made good money, and had a way of making people feel like they were the most important person in the room. It was part of what drew me to her. She was magnetic. Fast forward to a few months ago, and things had changed. Our careers took different paths. I work in finance, and the hours can be brutal. Meanwhile, Laura had decided she was tired of the corporate grind and quit her job to focus on, well, herself. She called it a mental reset. I called it an extended vacation at my expense. Since she was home all the time, she got it in her head that our house wasn't clean enough. I mean, sure, it wasn't spotless, but we managed just fine. She, however, wanted perfection. I didn't argue. If it made her happy, fine. So, she hired a cleaner. Enter Max. Max was young, maybe mid-20s, and the kind of guy who looks like he stepped out of a fitness magazine. Tall, muscular, always smiling. That charming but not too much type of guy. He came highly recommended, and Laura immediately raved about how professional and efficient he was. Again, I didn't argue. I figured, good, that means I don't have to come home to Laura complaining about dust on the bookshelves. At first, I didn't think much of it. Max would come in a few times a week while I was at work, and that was that. But then I started noticing little things. Laura would casually mention him in conversations. How funny he was, how great he was at his job. She started getting all dressed up when he came over, wearing outfits I hadn't seen her bother with in months. And suddenly, she was very interested in keeping him around longer. What started as a twice-a-week cleaning gig turned into nearly every other day. She justified it by saying she was managing the household, and that a clean home is a happy home. I should have trusted my gut. Instead, I ignored the way she'd light up when talking about him. I ignored the fact that she suddenly needed his help with things like moving furniture, things she never would have asked for before. I ignored the way she would stay downstairs with him the entire time he was working instead of letting him do his job. And then there were the looks. The way she looked at him like he was the most interesting person in the world. I'd walk in after work and find them laughing in the kitchen, like old friends catching up over coffee. But when I walked in, the air would shift. Laura would suddenly get up, busy herself with something, act like nothing was going on. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, that I was just tired, stressed from work, reading too much into things. After all, she was my wife. She wouldn't do that to me, right? God, I wish I had listened to my instincts. That's when things really started to spiral. I don't know exactly when I went from uneasy to paranoid, but it happened fast. One night, I came home later than usual. Laura didn't hear me come in, so I walked quietly through the house. I found her sitting in the living room, giggling at something on her phone. When she noticed me, she quickly locked the screen and set the phone aside like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't have. That moment stuck with me. I wasn't the type to snoop through her things, but my gut was telling me something was off. So, the next day, I checked our shared phone bill online. My heart nearly stopped when I saw Max's number listed over and over again. She had been texting him constantly. Morning, afternoon, night. Sometimes even while I was in the same room as her. I confronted her about it. Asked her why she was texting Max so much. She gave me an innocent laugh and said, "Oh, relax. He just sends me funny memes and cleaning tips. It's harmless." Harmless. Right. Because married women always text their cleaners dozens of times a day for cleaning tips. I wasn't buying it, but I didn't want to start a fight without proof. So, I let it go. For the moment. Then, one Saturday, I decided to test something. I told Laura I had to go into the office for a few hours, even though I didn't. Instead, I parked my car down the street and waited. Sure enough, 30 minutes later, Max's car pulled up in front of our house. He wasn't even carrying his cleaning supplies. I watched him ring the doorbell. Laura answered almost instantly, like she'd been waiting for him. She glanced around outside quickly before pulling him in and shutting the door behind them. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, trying to keep my breathing steady. My hands were shaking. I knew, right then, that my marriage was in serious trouble. I waited in that car for over an hour, staring at the house, trying to convince myself I was wrong. Maybe he really was just there to help her with something. Maybe I was being crazy. But deep down, I knew the truth. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked up to the house, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I hesitated at the door, debating whether I should knock or just walk in. This was my home, my wife, my life. I turned the handle and stepped inside. The house was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard it. Soft laughter coming from upstairs. My blood ran cold. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my hands clenched into fists. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. There they were, in our bed. Laura's eyes widened in shock, but then, as if on cue, her face twisted in anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" she snapped, as if I were the one in the wrong. I felt my stomach drop. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was furious at me. For a moment, I stood there, frozen. My mind was screaming at me to say something, to do something, but I was in complete shock. Max scrambled to grab his clothes, muttering some pathetic excuse, but Laura? She didn't even try to cover up. Instead, she crossed her arms and glared at me like I was the one who had done something wrong. "You shouldn't be barging in here like some psycho," she spat, like I was the intruder in my own home. I blinked. "Are you serious?" she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please, don't act like you didn't see this coming. Maybe if you paid half as much attention to me as you do to your job, we wouldn't be here." I felt my hands shake. She was actually blaming me. "So, this is my fault now?" she smirked. "Well, it's certainly not mine." Laura stood there, completely unbothered, while Max awkwardly fumbled to put his clothes back on. My mind raced through 1,000 different ways to react, but I felt like I was outside my own body, just watching it all unfold in slow motion. "You don't even look guilty," I finally managed to say, my voice strained. Laura sighed dramatically. "Oh, come on, don't be so melodramatic." I clenched my jaw. "Melodramatic? I just caught my wife in bed with another man, and I'm the one being unreasonable?" She rolled her eyes. "Look, we both know this marriage hasn't been working for a while. You're always working, always tired, always somewhere else. What did you expect me to do? Sit around and feel neglected forever?" Max, now fully dressed, muttered something about giving us space and practically ran out of the room. Coward. Not that I cared about him. I cared about the woman standing in front of me, looking at me like I was some inconvenience she had to deal with instead of her husband. "You could have talked to me," I said through gritted teeth. "You could have told me you weren't happy." Laura shrugged. "And what good would that have done? You don't listen. You don't care. You just bury yourself in work and expect me to sit here waiting for you." I shook my head. "That's not true, isn't it?" She shot back. "When was the last time we actually spent time together? When was the last time you made me feel like I was your priority?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Had I been distant? Sure. Had I worked late nights? Absolutely. But I never stopped loving her. I never even considered betraying her. And somehow, she had twisted everything to make this my fault. I exhaled sharply, trying to steady my nerves. "So, what now?" I asked. "You expect me to just accept this?" Laura shrugged again. I don't know. Maybe we should take some time apart. Maybe we both need to figure out what we really want. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, you've already figured out what you want. And it's not me. She didn't deny it. For the first time since I walked in, I truly saw her for what she was. Selfish, cruel, and utterly unapologetic. This wasn't the woman I fell in love with. That woman had died a long time ago, replaced by someone who didn't give a damn about me or our marriage. I turned away, walking out of the bedroom, out of the house, out of the life I thought I had. The days following that disaster of a confrontation were a blur. I stayed with a friend while I figured out my next move. Laura texted me a few times, but never to apologize. Instead, she had the nerve to ask if I planned to keep paying the mortgage while we worked things out. Worked things out. Right. I didn't respond. I contacted a lawyer instead. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just break your heart. It shatters your entire sense of reality. I spent years believing in a marriage that apparently only mattered to one of us. And now, I had to rebuild my life from the ground up. The lawyer advised me to gather everything: bank statements, texts, proof of her affair. I spent hours combing through our shared accounts, finding expense after expense that made me sick to my stomach. Fancy dinners, hotel stays, gifts, all things I never got, but Max did. The worst part? Laura didn't even seem to care that I was done. She acted like this was some inevitable ending that she had no control over. Like I was just another phase in her life she was ready to move past. But if she thought I was going to make this easy for her, she was dead wrong. I was done being the fool. After the initial shock wore off, I realized I had a battle ahead of me. Laura wasn't just some cheating spouse I could cut out of my life easily. She was legally tied to me, and that meant a fight was coming. I met with my lawyer, a no-nonsense guy named Harris, who took one look at my situation and immediately advised me to go for a clean divorce. Don't let emotions make you sloppy, he said. Your anger is justified, but this is about strategy. You don't just want out, you want out on your terms. He was right. I wanted nothing to do with Laura, but I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything while blaming me for her mistakes. We had a house, savings, and assets that needed to be divided, and given how cold she'd been, I had no doubt she would try to milk the divorce for all it was worth. When I finally told Laura I had filed, she acted amused. Wow, she scoffed. You're really doing this, huh? What did you expect? I shot back. You thought I'd stick around and pretend this never happened? She crossed her arms. I just thought we could be adults about this. I let out a dry laugh. Adults? You cheated on me in our own home, with a guy the first paid to be here. Forgive me if I don't take relationship advice from you. She shrugged, completely unbothered. Whatever. Just don't expect me to leave this house without a fight. And there it was. The real Laura. The one who cared more about material things than the damage she caused. I had spent years providing for her, making sure she had a comfortable life, and now she wanted to sink her claws in and take everything she could. Fine. If she wanted a fight, I'd give her one. The divorce proceedings began, and as expected, Laura played dirty. She suddenly painted herself as the victim, claiming I had emotionally neglected her for years. She told the lawyers that Max wasn't the issue. The real problem was my lack of affection, my obsession with work, my supposed disinterest in our marriage. I had no choice, she told them. I was lonely. He was never around. Max made me feel seen. Classic deflection. Classic manipulation. And the worst part? The legal system doesn't care about infidelity in most cases. It cares about division of assets, financial contributions, and living arrangements. Laura had been jobless for years, meaning she had leverage to ask for support, and I knew she would push for as much as she could get. But I had an ace up my sleeve. Proof. I had bank statements showing she had spent thousands on Max while pretending we were struggling financially. I had texts. Ones where she admitted to cheating, ones where she laughed about how easy it was to get away with. My lawyer told me this wouldn't necessarily stop her from getting something in the divorce, but it would destroy any sympathy she hoped to gain. And so, the war continued. At night, I lay awake wondering how I had ended up here. How did the woman I once loved become this person? Had she always been this way, or had I just refused to see it? The thought ate away at me, but I knew one thing for sure. I would never let her win. The legal war had officially begun, and it didn't take long for Laura to show her true colors. What started as a cold, calculated attempt to claim as much as she could soon spiraled into outright hostility. Every communication went through our lawyers, and when we did have to talk, she was venomous. "I hope you know you're wasting your money," she sneered in one of our rare face-to-face encounters. "You think you're going to come out of this with anything? I'll take what I'm owed, and there's nothing you can do about it." "You're owed nothing," I shot back. "You threw this marriage away. You don't get to walk away with a reward." She scoffed. "We were over long before Max. You just refused to see it." That was her go-to excuse for everything. Her cheating? My fault. The divorce? My fault. Her unhappiness? All on me. It was like she had completely rewritten our entire history in her head, turning me into the villain of her little story. And the worst part? She was good at playing the victim. Her lawyer tried to paint me as the workaholic husband who neglected his wife. They brought up my long hours, my missed date nights, and every single time I came home too exhausted to entertain her. Never mind the fact that I was working to provide for us. No, according to them, I had emotionally abandoned her, and that, apparently, justified her affair. Luckily, my lawyer was sharp. "None of that changes the fact that she cheated," Harris pointed out during one of our meetings. "She broke the vows, not you. And with the proof we have, she doesn't have much of a case for sympathy." But Laura wasn't done. She didn't just want money. She wanted to humiliate me. One day, I got a call from a mutual friend. "Dude, have you seen what she's posting online?" I hadn't, but I checked. And there it was. Laura airing our dirty laundry all over social media. She painted herself as the heartbroken wife, forced into another man's arms because of her cold, distant husband. The comment section was full of people sympathizing with her, telling her she was so strong for leaving such a toxic relationship. I felt sick. This was a woman who had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and yet, she had somehow managed to twist the story to make herself look like the victim. I wanted to respond. I wanted to tell everyone the truth, but my lawyer advised against it. Let her dig her own grave. The more she plays games, the worse she looks in court. So, I stayed silent. I focused on the case. I focused on making sure she didn't take more than she deserved. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, she hit me with the ultimate low blow. She wanted the house. The very house I had worked years to afford. The house she had defiled by bringing Max into it. The house she had turned into a battleground. "You're insane if you think I'm letting you have that house," I told her when I finally snapped. She smirked. "Watch me." And just like that, the war escalated to a whole new level. Laura wanting the house wasn't just a slap in the face. It was the final insult. She had already taken my trust, my peace, and years of my life. Now she wanted to take the home I built, the place that was supposed to be my sanctuary. No, absolutely not. My lawyer, Harris, didn't seem surprised. "She'll try to push for it, but it's not as simple as she thinks," he said. "You were the sole provider. She's been unemployed for years. A judge won't just hand her the house, especially not when we have proof of her infidelity." That gave me a bit of hope, but Laura wasn't the type to back down easily. When her legal team realized she had no legal claim to the house, she changed tactics. If she couldn't have it, she'd make sure I didn't want it anymore. First came the accusations. Out of nowhere, she started telling people I had been emotionally abusive, that I had controlled her for years. The same woman who had spent our entire marriage spending my money without a care in the world was now claiming she had been trapped. "He made me feel like a prisoner in my own home," she posted online. "I finally found the courage to leave, and now he's punishing me for it." The comments poured in. People sympathized. People believed her. "Stay strong, Queen, one woman wrote. You don't deserve this. I wanted to scream. Then came the sabotage. One day, I went to the house to check on things before a scheduled court hearing, and I found the place trashed. Clothes thrown everywhere. My furniture overturned. Important documents missing. And worst of all, someone had taken a knife to my leather couch, slashing it beyond repair. I called Harris immediately. She's trying to make you react, he warned. Don't give her what she wants. Document everything and file a report. So I did. I took pictures, filed a police report, and handed everything over to my lawyer. But Laura wasn't done yet. She dragged Max into the battle. The man she had cheated on me with, the man she had thrown our marriage away for, was now showing up to court hearings, standing by her side as if they were some sort of power couple. He even had the nerve to smirk at me like he had won some grand prize. I didn't let it get to me. I focused on the facts, on the truth, and finally, after what felt like an eternity of legal battles, the verdict came in. The house was mine. Laura was furious. She had fought tooth and nail, tried every manipulation tactic in the book, but in the end, the judge saw through her lies. She got a settlement, but it was nowhere near what she had hoped for. And that's when the mask finally slipped. After the ruling, she cornered me outside the courtroom. You'll regret this, she hissed. You think you've won? You haven't seen the last of me. For the first time in a long time, I felt nothing but relief. I don't care anymore, Laura, I said. You can try whatever you want. You don't matter to me anymore. She expected me to fight, to react, to give her more of my energy. But I was done. And that, I think, was what truly broke her. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. It was over. The war, the lies, the manipulation. Laura was finally out of my life, at least in any way that mattered. She walked out of the courthouse with Max at her side, still clinging to the illusion that she had won something. But there was nothing left for her to take. She had lost the house, lost the cushy lifestyle she was used to, and most of all, lost the ability to control me. She tried to get one last jab in before leaving. I hope you enjoy being alone, she sneered. You'll never find someone who'll put up with you. I just smiled. That's the point, Laura. I don't want someone who has to put up with me. I want someone who actually loves me. She didn't have a comeback for that. She just scoffed and stormed off, dragging Max along with her. The irony wasn't lost on me. She had thrown everything away for a man who would probably leave the moment things got tough. I spent the next few weeks reclaiming my life. I changed the locks, had the entire house deep cleaned, ironic, I know, and even got rid of the furniture that reminded me of her. It was like shedding an old skin, peeling away the remnants of a toxic past to make room for something better. And let me tell you, freedom is a beautiful thing. No more walking on eggshells. No more feeling inadequate. No more wondering if the person next to me actually cared. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I won't pretend that healing was instant. There were moments of anger, moments where the betrayal still stung. But with every passing day, it hurt a little less. And eventually, I stopped thinking about Laura altogether. Then, one day, I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, I just wanted to say, I think I made a mistake. I stared at the screen for a long time before deleting the message without responding. I wasn't interested in looking back. I had a future to focus on, and for the first time in a long time, it was entirely mine. The end. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. What do you think about this story? Do you think I handled the situation the right way, or would you have done something differently? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever been through something similar, feel free to share your experience. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more crazy stories. Until next time.